The lights of the morning show studio burned my retinas as the host's voice chirped through the air. Galen and I sat on plush chairs across from her, cameras trained on our faces while she asked about our secret to a successful marriage. Viewers nationwide watched, coffee mugs in hand, waiting for the heartwarming answer from what appeared to be the perfect couple. Actually, Diane, Galen interrupted, straightening his tie, I have an announcement. My heart skipped. This wasn't part of our agreed talking points. I believe in what I call an airport divorce, he continued, his voice steady. Clean, quick, final. Like strangers passing in a terminal, never to see each other again. Stunned silence fell over the studio. I'm leaving Tessa, he announced to 3 million viewers. 7 years is enough. The host's mouth opened and closed, her practiced composure crumbling as she glanced frantically toward the producer. I will be right back after these messages, she stammered. As the on-air light dimmed, I sat frozen, my hands gripping my knees so tightly my knuckles turned white. Galen stood, removing his microphone. Sorry you had to find out this way, he said, not meeting my eyes. But it seemed efficient. 2 weeks passed in a blur of ignored calls and empty rooms. Then came the summons to his family home, a dinner his mother Corinne insisted upon for what she called proper closure. I arrived last. They were already seated, Galen at one end, his father Otto at the other, sister Willow and her husband adjacent, mother Corinne beside an empty chair clearly meant for me. Crystal stemware caught the light of the chandelier. The table setting was immaculate as always. You're late, Corinne noted, not looking up as I took my seat. The soup was served in silence. Then Corinne tapped her spoon against her water glass, the sound cutting through the room like a blade. We need to discuss what happened, she said, folding her napkin precisely. Galen has shared everything with us. I looked at him, wondering what everything meant. You failed as a wife, Corinne declared, chin raised high. He found someone better, someone who can give him what you couldn't. Everyone nodded in unison. Willow whispered something to her husband. Otto studied his plate with sudden interest. Not a single pair of eyes met mine. What they didn't know was that for 5 years I'd spent every third Thursday in the oncology ward. Galen drove me to the first appointment, then never again. Hospitals make me uncomfortable, he'd say, kissing my forehead before grabbing his golf clubs. I took cabs to chemotherapy while he told his family I was at the spa again, the words delivered with an eye roll. When I lost my hair, he moved to the guest bedroom. When treatments left me too weak to work, he complained about supporting us alone. When I needed help bathing, he hired a nurse and scheduled business trips. My cancer went into remission twice. It returned 3 times. Throughout it all, he kept me as his shameful secret. My mother wouldn't handle it well, he'd insist. She lost her sister to cancer. We need to protect her. So I smiled through family dinners with a wig perfectly styled, makeup hiding my pallor, excusing myself to be sick quietly when nausea overtook me. I endured Corinne asking monthly when I'd give her grandchildren, never knowing each treatment diminished that possibility. I listened to Otto call me lazy for quitting my job at the architecture firm. The television appearance had been Galen's idea. Let's talk about our home renovation, he'd suggested. I never imagined he'd use it to discard me publicly. I didn't argue now as Corinne continued listing my failings. Instead, I reached into my bag and withdrew a stack of papers. These are for you, I said, sliding the hospital records toward her. What's this? She asked, annoyed at my interruption. The truth, I replied simply. The room went quiet as she read. Her expression shifted from irritation to confusion to horror. The papers trembled in her hands as she read about the aggressive cancer, experimental treatments, remission statistics, the dates of surgeries, the prognosis discussions. She turned to the last page, the most recent scan from 3 weeks ago. The one showing cancer had spread to my bones. Terminal. This can't be right, she whispered. He never said. She crumpled forward, gasping. Ask him why he didn't tell you, I said, standing. Ask why he decided to leave when he learned it was terminal. Ask why he thought it acceptable to abandon his wife on national television rather than face 3 more months of marriage to a dying woman. The silence stretched as I walked to the door. And ask him, I added, how he plans to explain himself to those 3 million viewers when I give my interview tomorrow. I didn't look back, but the sound of Corinne's broken sobbing followed me out the door. If you're still with me, you know this isn't just another story. This is about betrayal at its deepest level. If you want to know how I turned my terminal diagnosis into the most satisfying revenge, hit that like button and subscribe. What happens next shocked everyone, including me. My name is Tessa Weaver, and until 2 weeks ago, I was the supportive wife of the brilliant architect Galen Bryant. We met at university where I was studying architectural design and he was completing his master's degree. I fell in love with his vision, his confidence, his seeming kindness. He was charming, attentive, and made me feel special in ways no one ever had. Our wedding was small but elegant. His family welcomed me with open arms, or so I thought. Corinne hugged me tight that day, whispering, "Take care of my boy," her voice warm with approval. The first 2 years were blissful. We worked at different firms but collaborated on weekend projects. We traveled. We made plans. We talked about children someday, but agreed to establish our careers first. Then came the headaches. "You're just stressed," Galen said when I mentioned them. "Work less." When I started losing weight rapidly, he bought me a gym membership. "Might as well make the most of it," he joked. The day I collapsed at work, my colleague Danny rushed me to the hospital. The doctor's words still echo. "We found a mass, a brain tumor, rare, aggressive." When Galen arrived at the hospital, his first question wasn't about my health. "Does anyone else know?" he asked, pacing beside my bed. That night, as I lay awake terrified, he made a proposal. "Let's keep this between us," he suggested. "No need to worry my parents. Mom's still traumatized from losing Aunt Penny to cancer." It seemed reasonable then. A temporary measure until we knew more. Surgery came first. I woke to Galen scrolling through his phone. "There you are," he said, barely glancing up. "Doctor says it went well." I started radiation therapy the following month. The side effects hit hard. Nausea, fatigue, hair loss. I bought scarves, then wigs. "You should stay home when you look unwell," Galen suggested. "I'll tell everyone you're working on a big project." Somewhere in those early months, something shifted. Galen stopped accompanying me to appointments. He started working later. Weekend getaways with his college friends became more frequent. "You need rest anyway," he'd say, packing his golf clubs. At family gatherings, I became an actress. I wore makeup to hide my pallor, styled my wig perfectly, and excused myself discreetly when nausea hit. I learned to time my anti-nausea medication to peak during dinner parties. Once, Willow cornered me in the kitchen. "You've lost so much weight," she observed. "Are you one of those wives who starves herself?" Before I could answer, Galen appeared. "Tessa's just dedicated to fitness lately," he said smoothly. "Aren't you, honey?" The worst moments came when Corinne began her campaign for grandchildren. "You're not getting younger," she'd remind me monthly, "and Galen would make such a wonderful father." I'd smile and nod, never telling her that each treatment reduced my chances, never mentioning that Galen hadn't touched me intimately in months. When my first remission came, I cried with relief. Galen celebrated by booking himself a golf trip to Scotland. "You deserve something special too," he said, handing me a spa gift card before leaving. I returned to work part-time, trying to rebuild my career. 3 months later, at a routine scan, the doctor's face told me everything before he spoke. The cancer had returned, more aggressive than before. This time, the treatment was experimental, harsh. I lost my job because I couldn't maintain even part-time hours. Galen complained about supporting us alone. "I didn't sign up to be a caretaker," he muttered one evening after I asked for help getting to the bathroom. The next day, he hired a home health aide named Petra, who came 3 days a week. Coincidentally, Galen began traveling for work those exact days. The pattern continued for years. Remission, recurrence, treatment. Galen growing more distant with each cycle. His family remaining blissfully unaware, still treating me like the lazy, careerless wife who wasn't giving them grandchildren. Then came the night everything changed. I found Galen in his home office, phone in hand, smiling in a way I hadn't seen in years. "Who was that?" I asked. "Client," he said quickly. Too quickly. Later that night, I checked his phone while he showered. The texts to Arya weren't about architecture. They were about their future together, about how he would be free soon. The next day, I got the results of my latest scan. The cancer had spread to my bones. My oncologist, Dr. Reynolds, spoke gently about quality of life and putting affairs in order. When I told Galen, he nodded silently, then went for a drive. He returned 3 hours later with the idea about going on the morning show to discuss our inspirational renovation of our craftsman bungalow. I never imagined his real plan until the cameras were rolling and the words "airport divorce" left his mouth. "Now, Sitting in my car outside his family's home, I realized something. For years, I'd been dying slowly, allowing Galen to erase me bit by bit, but I wasn't dead yet, and I wasn't going to disappear quietly. My phone buzzed as I pulled away from the house. An unfamiliar number flashed on the screen. "Is this Tessa? It's Diane Collins from Morning Today. I need to speak with you urgently." The host from the show where Galen had humiliated me now wanted to talk. How convenient. "I have nothing to say to you," I replied. "Please," she rushed. "What happened on air was—" "I had no idea. None of us did. The audience response has been overwhelming. People are furious with how you were treated." I turned into a pharmacy parking lot, killing the engine. "What do you want, Diane?" "Your side of the story. A chance to speak your truth." My truth. What a concept. For 5 years, I'd lived a carefully constructed lie to protect Galen's feelings, his reputation, his family's delicate sensibilities. Where had that gotten me? "I'll think about it," I said before hanging up. Inside the pharmacy, I picked up my latest prescription. The pharmacist, Liam, had been filling my medications for years. He knew more about my medical history than Galen's entire family. "Tough day?" he asked, noting my red eyes. "Tough life," I managed. He handed me my medications, then paused. "My sister had the same diagnosis 3 years ago." He hesitated. "She started a support group for terminal patients. They meet Tuesdays at the community center. Just thought you should know." I nodded, tucking the information away with my pills. At home, at Galen's home where I still technically lived, I found moving boxes stacked in the entryway. A note was taped to one, "Staying at Arya's, pack what's yours, movers coming Friday." I crumpled the note, feeling something break loose inside me. Not sadness. Not anymore. Something hotter, sharper. For years, I'd shrunk myself to accommodate Galen's comfort. I'd become smaller and smaller until I was barely visible, until I could be dismissed on national television like an unsatisfactory housekeeper. I reached for my phone and called Diane back. "I'll do the interview," I said, "but on my terms." The next morning, I visited Dr. Reynolds. "I need all my medical records," I told her. "Every scan, every treatment, every prognosis, discussion, everything." She studied me over her glasses. "May I ask why?" "I'm putting my affairs in order," I said, using her own phrase. That afternoon, I sat in a room at the community center, surrounded by 10 strangers who understood exactly what I was facing. The support group leader, Miriam, invited each of us to share. When my turn came, I found myself telling them everything, not just about the cancer, but about Galen, the public humiliation, his family's ignorance. "What's your plan now?" asked a man named Vincent, whose lung cancer had given him 6 months, 5 months ago. "I don't know," I admitted. "Die with dignity?" The room fell silent until an elderly woman named Pearl spoke up. "Honey, dignity is overrated. What you need is justice." After the meeting, Pearl handed me her phone number. "I worked 40 years as a private investigator before retirement. Call me if you need help burning it all down." That night, I slept in our bed, my bed now, for the first time in months. Usually, I took the guest room to avoid disturbing Galen with my night sweats and discomfort. Now, I spread out across the king mattress, savoring the space. I woke to banging on the front door. Petra, my health aide, stood on the porch looking concerned. "Mr. Galen called and fired me," she said. "Said I wasn't needed anymore, but I worried about you." I invited her in. Over tea, Petra revealed what I'd suspected but never confirmed. "He's been seeing another woman for almost 2 years," she said. "She called the house once while he was in the shower," I answered. "She thought I was you." "Did she know?" I asked. "About my condition?" Petra shook her head. She asked why I sounded different. "I covered for him, said you had a cold." "I'm sorry, Tessa. I should have told you." I squeezed her hand. "It's not your fault. Nothing about this situation is your fault." After Petra left, I called Pearl. "I need your help," I said, "and I can pay." "Don't worry about money," she replied. "Some jobs are passion projects. Tell me what you need." Over the next 3 days, I gathered information. Pearl worked her investigative magic, uncovering details about Galen's relationship with Arya Whitaker, a 30-year-old interior designer who'd worked on one of his recent projects. Pearl also discovered financial transfers. Galen had been moving money into separate accounts for months. Meanwhile, I prepared for my interview with Diane. Not just mentally, but physically, I made a decision that shocked even me. I removed my wig, revealing my sparse, patchy hair. I put away the makeup that had hidden my pallor. I dressed simply in clothes that no longer fit my diminished frame. This was who I was now. This was what cancer and Galen had done to me. The morning of the interview, Dr. Reynolds called with my latest test results. "There's been a development," she said, her voice carefully neutral. "We need to discuss your treatment plan." "Can it wait until tomorrow?" I asked. "I have something important today." "Tessa, this is significant. The experimental trial is showing—" "Please," I interrupted. "Just one more day." She relented, scheduling an appointment for the following morning. The studio felt different this time. No Galen, no pretense, just me, Diane, and the truth I'd hidden for years. "We're here with Tessa Weaver," Diane began after the introduction. 2 weeks ago, viewers witnessed a shocking moment when her husband, architect Galen Bryant, announced what he called an airport divorce on our program. "Tessa, thank you for coming back. Teeple, end of read." I nodded, acutely aware of how I must appear to viewers. Gaunt, nearly bald, impossibly frail compared to the carefully assembled woman who'd sat here before. Galen's announcement came as a surprise to everyone, including our production team, Diane continued. "But was it a surprise to you?" "The timing was unexpected," I replied. "The sentiment wasn't." "Can you elaborate?" I took a deep breath. "For 5 years, I've been battling an aggressive form of brain cancer. Galen drove me to my first appointment. After that, I took cabs to chemotherapy while he told his family I was at the spa." Diane's professional composure slipped. "I'm sorry, what?" "His family doesn't know. His friends don't know. No one knows except my doctors and a few strangers who've seen me vomiting in hospital bathrooms between treatments." As I spoke, images appeared on screen. Medical records, hospital bracelets, prescription bottles, all evidence Pearl had helped me compile, and the production team had verified. "Why keep it secret?" Diane asked, visibly shaken. "Galen said it would upset his mother, who lost her sister to cancer. He said we should wait until I was better. Then waiting became hiding. Hiding became lying. Lying became our life." I described the years of treatments, remissions, recurrences, the gradual withdrawal of Galen's support, the increasing isolation, the discovery of his affair. 2 days before our appearance on your show, I received news that the cancer has spread to my bones. "It's terminal," I told Galen that night. The next morning, he suggested we come on your program to discuss our home renovation. Diane reached for my hand, professional distance forgotten. "I don't know what to say." "You don't need to say anything," I assured her. "I just need people to hear the truth." "And what is the truth, Tessa? Beyond the medical facts?" I looked directly into the camera, knowing Galen would be watching somewhere. "The truth is that illness reveals who people really are. Some rise to the occasion with compassion and strength. Others run at the first sign of difficulty. Galen didn't just run, he erased me while I was still alive, making me complicit in my own disappearance." When the interview ended, my phone exploded with notifications. Willow, Otto, Corinne, dozens of missed calls, hundreds of text messages from unknown numbers, viewers reaching out with support, outrage, their own stories of abandonment. I ignored them all, focusing on the single text that mattered, from Galen. "What have you done?" My reply was simple, "Told the truth, something you should try." His response came quickly. "You've ruined me." I didn't bother answering. Instead, I drove to meet Pearl at a cafe across town. "You did well," she said, sliding a folder across the table. "How do you feel?" "Lighter," I admitted. "Like I've set down something heavy I've been carrying too long." She tapped the folder. "This is everything I found. Bank statements, text messages, emails between Galen and Arya dating back 18 months, property inquiries they've made together." I opened it briefly, then closed it again. "Thank you." "What's next?" Pearl asked. Before I could answer, my phone rang. Dr. Reynolds. "I know we have an appointment tomorrow," I began. "This can't wait, Tessa," she interrupted. "The results from your participation in the clinical trial are showing something unexpected. We need you to come in immediately." A cold weight settled in my stomach. "Is it spreading faster?" "No," she said. "Quite the opposite." When I hung up, Pearl was watching me with raised eyebrows. "Change of plans?" she asked. "Maybe," I said. "But first, I need to make some calls." That evening, as I prepared for my doctor's appointment, someone pounded on my front door. Galen stood on the porch, face contorted with rage. "You humiliated me," he seethed, pushing past me into the house. "My clients are canceling. My partners are considering a separation agreement." Arya's parents saw the interview and told her everything. "She's questioning our entire relationship." "How terrible for you," I said flatly. He paced the living room, running hands through his hair. Why would you do this? What do you gain by destroying everything I've built? Built? I echoed. You mean what we built together? Before you decided I was too broken to love? That's not fair, he snapped. I stayed for years. I paid for everything. You hid me away like something shameful, I cut in. You lied to everyone about my condition. You started planning your escape the moment my prognosis turned terminal. He stopped pacing, his expression changing from anger to calculation. What do you want, Tessa? Money? The house? Name your price to make this go away. I laughed, genuinely amused by his audacity. Make it go away? 3 million people watched you discard me on television. Millions more have seen today's interview. Your family knows the truth. Arya knows the truth. There's no making this go away. His face hardened. Then why? Just to hurt me? I moved closer, looking directly into the eyes of the man I'd once loved beyond reason. No, Galen, not to hurt you. To see you. Really see you, maybe for the first time. I opened the door, gesturing for him to leave. My doctor called earlier, I said as he stepped onto the porch. Apparently there's been an unexpected development with my condition. His back stiffened. What kind of development? I smiled, closing the door without answering. Tomorrow would bring whatever it would bring. Good news, bad news, or something in between. But for the first time in years, I was making my own choices, writing my own story. And Galen no longer controlled the narrative. The next morning, I sat across from Dr. Reynolds in her office as she spread scan images across her desk. I've consulted with 3 colleagues to confirm, she said, her typically measured voice tinged with excitement. The experimental treatment is working, Tessa. The tumors in your bones are shrinking. Substantially. I stared at the images, unable to process her words. What exactly does that mean? It means we're seeing a response we didn't anticipate. This doesn't guarantee remission, but it buys us time. Potentially significant time. How much time? Dr. Reynolds leaned forward. It's impossible to promise specifics, but rather than months, we could be talking about years. Years! The word hung between us, impossibly heavy with hope. The treatment protocols will remain intense, she cautioned. There will still be difficult days ahead. But Tessa, this is the breakthrough we've been waiting for. I left the hospital in a daze, sitting in my car for nearly an hour, trying to absorb this shift in my reality. For years, I'd lived countdown to countdown, this many months until the next scan, this many weeks until the next treatment, this many days until the next pill. Now the countdown had expanded, stretching into a future I hadn't dared imagine. My phone buzzed with a text from Pearl, meeting set with the lawyer. 2 p.m. Be ready for fireworks. The lawyer was Imani Davis, a razor-sharp divorce attorney Pearl had recommended. In her downtown office, with its panoramic city views, Imani reviewed the documents Pearl had gathered. Financial infidelity on top of actual infidelity, she mused, flipping through bank statements. Transferring marital assets without disclosure during an ongoing illness. The judges in this county don't look kindly on abandonment of sick spouses. She glanced up. Add the public humiliation factor, and we have a compelling case. For what exactly? I asked. For whatever you want, within reason. Imani leaned back in her chair. What do you want, Tessa? The question echoed Galen's from the night before, but felt entirely different coming from this woman who actually cared about my answer. I started, then paused. What did I want? For so long, my desires had shrunk to match my circumstances. Another day without pain. Another treatment that might work. Another moment of normalcy. I want my life back, I said finally. Not the life with him. My life. The one I had before I became cancer patient instead of person. Imani nodded. Then let's get it back. Over the next week, while Galen scrambled to salvage his reputation, I moved methodically. With Imani's guidance, I filed for divorce, citing abandonment and financial misconduct. With Pearl's help, I documented every asset Galen had hidden or transferred. With Dr. Reynolds' encouragement, I enrolled in an expanded clinical trial that offered promising results for patients like me. Galen's attempts to contact me grew increasingly desperate. First came anger, then bargaining, then a bizarre attempt at reconciliation. We can work this out, he pleaded in a voicemail. Come home. We'll face this together. Home. As if the house we'd shared was still home after he'd packed moving boxes for me. Together. As if we'd ever truly faced anything together. 10 days after my interview, Arya called me. I almost didn't answer the unknown number. Is this Tessa? A hesitant voice came through the speaker. It's Aria Whitaker, I think. I think we need to talk. We met at a quiet tea shop across town. She was younger than I'd imagined, with nervous hands that shredded a napkin as she spoke. I didn't know, she began, about your illness, about any of it. He told me you two had grown apart years ago, that you stayed together for appearances. And you believed him, I said, not a question. She nodded miserably. He said you were cold, career, obsessed, that you traveled constantly for work while he wanted to start a family. I laughed, the sound sharp even to my own ears. I haven't worked in 3 years, and the only traveling I've done is to hospitals. I know that now, she whispered. After your interview, I confronted him. He claimed you were exaggerating for sympathy, that your condition wasn't as serious as you made it seem. And now? She met my eyes for the first time. Now I know he's a liar. I found your medical bills in his desk drawer last night. Years of treatments, surgeries, medications, all while he was telling me you were perfectly healthy and just emotionally unavailable. I sipped my tea, watching her twist her hands. Why are you telling me this, Aria? She pulled out her phone, opened a folder, and slid it across the table. Because you deserve to know everything, not just about us, but about the finances, the business deals, all of it. The folder contained hundreds of screenshots, text conversations, emails, bank transfers, property records. He's been planning this for almost 2 years, she explained, moving assets, setting up accounts you couldn't access, even putting property in his parents' names to hide it during divorce proceedings. I scrolled through the evidence, surprisingly calm. Why are you giving me this? Because what he did was wrong, she said simply, and because he's doing the same thing to me now, just in a different way. Last night he suggested we take a break until this blows over. He's already erasing me, just like he erased you. As Arya continued talking, a plan crystallized in my mind, not revenge exactly, but justice. A way to reclaim not just what was rightfully mine, but something more precious, the truth. Arya, I interrupted, I need one more favor. The day of our divorce mediation arrived crisp and clear. Galen had agreed to meet with our respective lawyers, hoping to avoid the publicity of a courtroom. He still believed he could control the narrative, minimize the damage, protect what remained of his reputation. He didn't know I'd spent the week speaking with his business partners. He didn't know I'd had coffee with 3 of his biggest clients. He didn't know I'd visited his parents, medical records in hand, and sat with them for hours as they processed the magnitude of his deception. He didn't know about my meeting with the state licensing board for architects, detailing how he'd misappropriated client funds. He didn't know about Arya's testimony, or the evidence she'd provided. He didn't know about the reporter from the Architecture Journal who was working on an exposé about prominent architects who exploited their spouses' contributions without credit. Most importantly, he didn't know about my medical breakthrough, the treatment that was buying me years rather than months. The mediation room felt sterile and cold. Galen arrived with his lawyer, a silver-haired man with an air of easy confidence. I sat with Imani, Pearl beside me for moral support. Let's keep this civil, Galen's lawyer began. My client is prepared to be generous despite the unfortunate public airing of private matters. Imani smiled thinly. How thoughtful. And what does generous mean, exactly? The lawyer pushed a document across the table. Mr. Bryant will provide spousal support for 1 year, medical coverage until the dissolution is final, and Mrs. Bryant may keep her personal belongings from the marital home. Mrs. Weaver, I corrected. I'm reverting to my maiden name. Galen shifted uncomfortably. Be reasonable, Tessa. Given your condition, this is more than fair. Imani raised an eyebrow. My client's condition is precisely why this offer is insultingly inadequate. The marital assets are largely tied to my client's business, his lawyer interjected smoothly. Miss Weaver made minimal financial contributions during the marriage. Interesting perspective, Imani replied, opening her laptop. Let's discuss those minimal contributions. For the next hour, she methodically dismantled their position. My initial investments in Galen's firm, the clients I'd brought through my own professional network, the designs I'd contributed to award-winning projects without credit, the intellectual property I'd helped develop. As Galen's face darkened, Imani moved on to the financial evidence, the hidden accounts, the transferred assets, the properties placed in his parents' names to shield them from division. This crosses the line from divorce strategy into financial fraud, she noted calmly, which becomes a criminal matter rather than just a civil one. Galen leaned toward his lawyer, whispering frantically. The older man raised a hand to silence him. Perhaps we should take a break to discuss a revised offer, he suggested. Before we do, I said, speaking for the first time, there's something Galen should know. I pulled out a folder of my own, sliding it across the table. What's this? He asked suspiciously. My latest medical results. The experimental treatment is working. The cancer is responding. According to my doctors, I likely have years ahead of me, not months. His face went blank, processing. Then, incredulously, you're not dying? Not anytime soon, I confirmed. Which means I'll be around to see this through. All of it. I stood, gathering my things. Galen wanted an airport divorce. Quick, clean, final. But this won't be quick. It won't be clean. And even when it's final, it won't be over. Because I'll still be here. I'll still be speaking my truth. I'll still be reclaiming everything he tried to take from me, including my voice. I nodded to Amani to continue without me. Where are you going? Galen demanded. At the door, I turned back one last time. To live my life, I said. Something you never thought I'd have the chance to do again. Outside, I took a deep breath of fresh air. My phone chimed with a message from Dr. Reynolds confirming my next treatment. Another from Pearl asking how the mediation was going. A third from Willow, hesitantly suggesting coffee. The future stretched before me, uncertain still, but mine to shape. There would be hard days ahead, more treatments, more battles, both medical and legal. But for the first time in years, possibility outweighed limitation. My revenge wasn't in destroying Galen, though his carefully constructed world was certainly crumbling. My revenge was in reclaiming my story, in refusing to disappear, in living fully and truthfully while he suffocated under the weight of his own lies. As I walked toward my car, a young woman approached, one of the production assistants from the morning show. "Excuse me, Miss Weaver? Diane asked me to give you this." She handed me a business card with a handwritten note on the back. "When you're ready, we'd love to have you host a segment on survivorship and advocacy. Your voice matters." My voice, my story, my life, however long or short it might be. In the end, that was the most brutal revenge of all. If this story touched you, please hit that subscribe button. Share it with someone who needs to hear that their voice matters too. Leave a comment about a time when speaking your truth changed everything. Remember, sometimes the greatest revenge isn't about getting even, it's about getting free.